Bem-vindos a mais um episódio das sagas das histórias que eu estou compartilhando com vocês aqui nesse canal. Para quem não me conhece, sou Anderson Dick, eu sou o fundador da Feutech, mas aqui eu estou para falar de carros, de loucuras, de paixões. E hoje, um episódio muito especial, um episódio da Mercedes FT Senna, aqui ó, a camiseta do Brasil em homenagem a ela. A Mercedes está em Connecticut, está lá com o Colton, o cara que é o colecionador, aquele JDM Supreme, inclusive tem um episódio que eu filmei lá, mostrando a Mercedes chegando, e um outro episódio que eu mostrei toda a coleção do Colton lá, que é fantástico. O cara é um maluco, assim. E ele assumiu a Mercedes para tocar todo o projeto lá, o que precisava para montar ela, e assim, ele assumiu como um filho mesmo. O Colton, para quem não conhece, se não assistiu os outros episódios, eu acho que é legal assistir, mas o Colton é um americano, né, que tem uma ligação com o Brasil muito forte, porque ele conheceu o Diego Iga, vendeu o carro, aquele que o Diego Iga vai correr em 2023 na Fórmula Drift. E tanto que o Colton, ele faz todos os posts, por exemplo, de Instagram e das mídias sociais dele, ele sempre coloca em português e inglês, justamente para essa conexão com o público brasileiro. Ter entrado a Mercedes para o projeto, para ele fazer lá, foi algo assim que casou todos, porque ele sempre gostou de Mercedes, dessa Mercedes particularmente. Ele tem uma lá que foi dele, inclusive, está na oficina, eu mostrei na outra vez. Ele sempre quis fazer um projeto meio louco assim, e ele está fazendo pessoalmente o negócio. Para vocês terem uma ideia, o Colton é o dono da oficina, né? Ele e o pai dele são os donos da oficina, mas ele é o que gerencia tudo, eu acho que é inclusive mais ativo. E ele bota a mão mesmo, assim, ele realmente é o cara que vai lá, lixa a porta, é o cara que corta, é o cara que faz tudo, e ele está muito empolgado botando a mão em tudo. Como eu não estou lá para documentar e mostrar tudo que está acontecendo, eu pedi para ele gravar para mim e gravar para vocês aí exatamente o processo, porque tem umas coisas bem profundas acontecendo. Inclusive eram horas e horas de material aí que a gente compilou, editou e colocou em menos de uma hora. Só que obviamente o Colton, apesar da vontade dele de querer se comunicar em português, mensagens e em Instagram, tudo, e nesse vídeo ele vai estar falando tudo em inglês. Então é importante ativar as legendas aqui, ó, bota CC, que é Closed Caption, que é no YouTube a maneira de ativar as legendas, e seleciona o idioma aqui. Se lembre que meus vídeos eu sempre coloco português, inglês e espanhol. Inclusive quero agradecer aí quem sempre faz as legendas, ultimamente tem feito as legendas por já mais de ano, eu acho, para o meu canal, é o Max. Um cara, gente boa demais, apaixonado pelo que faz, e agora ele está assumindo um outro papel aí, e esse papel vai ser deixado para uma outra pessoa. E eu fiz esses dias um post no Instagram para perguntar quem é que estava disponível, quem é que estava interessado em fazer isso, em assumir isso aí. A gente teve aí centenas de pessoas, e eu não sei a partir de quando, mas nos próximos vídeos vocês já vão ter uma pessoa nova que vai estar fazendo toda essa parte aí das legendas. Lembrando também, né, a gente tem sempre vagas abertas na Feutech USA e na Feutech Brasil para quem está procurando uma oportunidade de trabalhar na Feutech. Na Feutech USA, obviamente, tem que morar nos Estados Unidos, tem que ter já documentação para trabalho aqui, e na Feutech Brasil pode ser também remoto, viu? Então, não esqueçam de vejam nos links aqui que eu vou deixar os links para quem quiser mandar seu currículo e se candidatar a alguma vaga aí. Mas por favor, se for apaixonado, se você está assistindo esse vídeo, provavelmente gosta de alguma maneira já do que a gente faz, então pode ser um perfil. Se não, mande para alguém que tem interesse, porque a gente está sempre procurando isso aí. Então, esse vai ser um episódio diferente, vocês vão, o ator principal é o Colton, ele vai mostrar para vocês todo o processo que ele está fazendo na Mercedes. Na verdade, eu assisti esse material aí e fiquei surpreso, porque ele foi fazendo muita coisa de surpresa, ele foi fazendo muita coisa realmente com a autonomia que eu mesmo dei para ele. Falei, cara, tu é o artista, tu faz como tu achar que vai ficar melhor, porque eu confio em ti. A gente discutiu muito as ideias do projeto, as ideias do que ele vai fazer, e ele está fazendo algo muito legal. A nossa meta, meio agressiva, meio difícil, inclusive, é tentar acabar a Mercedes para o SEMA. Tem outras dificuldades aí, inclusive como levar a Mercedes para o SEMA. São mais de 2.000 milhas aí, mais de 3.000 quilômetros de distância entre a costa leste e a costa oeste. Inclusive tem alguns brasileiros aí que de repente podem ajudar a levar esse carro aí. Se tiver alguém aí, levanta o braço aí e nos chama, porque a gente está precisando de ajuda para ver como é que a gente vai levar os carros lá para o SEMA. Inclusive vocês estão vendo aqui, ó, o Opala, C8, Supra, vários dos carros aqui, a Ferrari. A gente estava tentando até levar mais carros por SEMA, mas realmente é uma dificuldade muito grande de transporte, que nos Estados Unidos é missão mesmo. Então, espero que curtam. Bota na legenda aqui para quem quer treinar o inglês, inclusive é uma boa desculpa, vocês podem dizer que nos meus vídeos até em inglês vocês aprendem aí. E assiste o vídeo aí, bota na TV, chimarrão aí, ó, aquele churrasquinho. Espero que vocês curtem aí. Valeu!
What's going on, guys? As you may or may not know, this car, it is the Fueltech 190E Cosworth. It's a 16 valve 2.3. It's been stroked out to, I believe, a 2.5 liter 400 plus horsepower monster that Anderson and Fueltech have decided to make a demo vehicle. This car might be at the track, is definitely going to be at SEMA this year, so we have to make sure that this car not only shows well, but it also performs as well as it looks. So I'm out here, we're about to commence the project. Anderson left 2 or 3 days ago or so. I'm over with Sevens Day. Now I have the time and ability to actually devote this specific project right here. Needless to say, this vehicle has a long road ahead of it, and we have a short amount of time to do it in. We've got roughly 60 days or less to get all of the fit and finish panel, all the cladding on the side has got to be nice. We're also running into issues, which actually a lot of rust areas which were discovered underneath a lot of this old seam sealer. So we're gonna have to dig this up at the very least down to bare metal. There's some additional issues with the roll cage that were pre-existing. We want to go to something that's more spec'd to size, actually regulation, because we want Anderson to actually compete with this vehicle, have some fun. He just doesn't want to show up and pop the hood and show him what the company's about, but also at any given moment he could jump behind the wheel and actually shred with it at any drift event or actually time attack, stuff that this car was built for many years ago. So those don't know, the 2.3, the Cosworths and the Evolutions were at the pinnacle of 80s motorsport, 80s German motorsport. This car was the arch nemesis to things like the E30 M3, which was an extremely successful vehicle in the late 80s BMW, for those who don't know. So here we are again, the 190E. We just got done pressure washing the vehicle, the engine bay. There was loads of grease. Like, I'm afraid to move this car from where it is, but as you can see on the ground, it is just laden with thick amounts of dirt, debris, and grease. So before we get our hands dirtier than they have to get, what we're going to do is we cleaned up the chassis. We're going to prep it. Areas that have to be welded, every single hole on the engine bay is going to be buttoned up. We're going to weld it and seal it, so it's going to be like a wire tucked, very clean, flat finish. We are going to give Anderson and Fueltech, we already agreed to this, because he says all he needs a hole about 2 inches and he can get all of his wiring harness through, all of his wire tucking, everything through this 1.5 or 2 inch hole. So the pre-existing throttle cable, the original throttle cable, is going to be the only hole that we leave him. Everything else is going to be shaved, blocked off, clean, painted, finished like a show car, except for this hole. That's all we're giving you, Anderson. So now you know. The inner heat shields, the strut tower brace and heat shield, it's acting as a heat shield right now because it's a turbocharged engine. I just got all this bagged up because I didn't want to get it all nasty and dirty from the pressure washer. So on the inside of this plate, this firewall, it's actually going to be removed. We're going to cut this back wall here, but in that process we're going to lose a lot of structural rigidity. So what we've decided to do is just do a strut brace or a front member support from the front tower to the back end of your front collision rail on both sides. So one here all the way down to the front, and that'll give us the ability to not only shave this panel out, but we'll also do what a lot of the FDs and the Mazdas have done. It's that front wheel well, so we'll be able to clean this and cut some of this out to leave it a much more wide open blank landscape, giving Anderson the ability to change and adjust suspension on the fly. It'll give a cleaner look, and then what we'll do is we'll just do like a carbon fiber inner splash panel or well. So they will look good when you pop the hood, but they are very quick to remove. They're easily, it's going to have an easy access, so fast removal, faster reinstallation at a moment's notice. So we're also going to do away with the factory heater box that's on this vehicle. It takes up a ton of space. He's not going to run heat or AC on this vehicle, so that is going to go. We're going to block off that area to the firewall. It's going to give it a much cleaner presentation. So as you see for the rest of the vehicle, fit and finish is okay. There's a lot of thick, cruddy areas of the fiberglass. This isn't by any means pretty. There's supposed to be little lift covers that go here, jack covers. So these are going to get cleaned up. Body plugs go here. Door panels, we need clips for the door panels. We need to fit and finish the rest of this. And then we also have to make inner fender liners for this vehicle. So these kits, as pretty as they are, unfortunately don't have any sort of wind restraint or block off cap to the inside of the bumper. So we also have to make those. And obvious, the paint. So the entire vehicle is going to get painted in this extra black. You want something that's like super depth, very dark, not your average black, and then it has a gold pinstriping, paying tribute to the early Senna racing days, like the Lotus that he'd raced for. The team car was all gold pinstripe. So some of the parameters of the rear wing, like we'll do parameter here all the way through. The back quarter panel will also have additional pinstriping. I've come up with a few ideas. Anderson's like, hey, listen, just go with it. He's taken my word for every approach on this thing. So again, I'm the artist here. He likes what he's seen inside my shop. He's liked the work that he's seen. So he's like, hey, just run with it. So those are the people I love to work with. Again, I love the wheels. We might do a little something extra to the wheels. He's got brakes that are gonna go there. We're gonna see if we can go with an aftermarket control arm setup. We have custom mirrors. There are carbon fiber door panels, door cards. There's a slew of things that have to be done to this, including weld in the sunroof. But we're not gonna weld in the sunroof until we fix the roll cage, which requires a full removal of the cage, a fabrication and the reinstallation of a new cage, and then weld in the roof. Thank God they left that, because we wouldn't have been able to get at some of the areas of this cage without that being left exposed. This heater box here, all of that's gonna go. So Anderson will have the ability to throw any gauge he wants, any dashboard design he wants, and it's also going to give him the ability to work on this vehicle seamlessly. So he's going to be able to reach up underneath that dash, change, adjust, and or modify things at a moment's notice. It's going to be very easy. He can put a fuse block or junction behind that, and he'll just be able to peek underneath to see exactly what's blown. It's going to be, for the most part, a race car, show, go, a universal Swiss Army knife, if you will. So here we are, day one. Just got done the cleanup, and now we've got to get into the body shop and start the cutting, fabrication in the engine bay, as well as the body work. Peace. So this is the plasma cutter, and what a plasma cutter does is it slices through 1/8 all the way to 3/8, even 1/2 inch plate, depending on the tip that you have in the plasma cutter. Saves you a lot of time, and also it's a much cleaner cut. What we're going to do is we're going to plasma cut the sections on the inside of this firewall. Just extra steel, honestly. Places of this Mercedes where it was reinforcement, or it was a heat barrier for the exhaust manifold. We just really want to clean up the engine bay, as I mentioned before, and get a lot of this stuff out of the way so Anderson and his team can do the magic and make it look like a show car and just not something that we painted overnight. Now we just got to grind this flange down and clean it up, finish removing that heater box, and come over to this side and remove that. What we're going to do is we're going to bridge it in between the steering column, the brake booster area, and also the back side of the strut tower, as well as cut out these wheel wells to gain clearance to the inside of the wheel wells where they're hitting. This right here, this is the wheel and tire that Anderson wants to run, and we're hitting right here. So all of that has to come out. It'll be braced, it'll be an easy access for who goes to change or adjust suspension. It's an idea that we came up with. I'm not quite sure how many people with 190Es are doing this or going through this issue, but it's similar to the 3rd gen Mazda RX-7s where a lot of that area is just plastic, wheel well, no real support. On this vehicle is support, so we have to add support after the removal. These tires, this wheel combo is far too large for this front end, unfortunately. It looks great, but this will have to be removed. Plastic body clips everywhere. They're for the old harness, but Anderson and the guys at Fuel Tech won't use any of the original harness, so unfortunately all of these things have to go. What we're going to do is just hit them with a grinder on the inside, like so, and they'll fall right out. We also have additional firewall grommets and other little plastic tidbits, accessories that have to come off this car, so the engine bay is completely clean. Again, we're going for a look that is not often seen on a 190. There's going to be a lot of missing sheet metal out of this, but inner bracing and structural support, to its benefit, will give it a cleaner look and also more rigidity. We're just going to clean up the rest of these edges and get them close to as perfect as we can, and we're going to go back in there and just tack weld lightly where we need to. A lot of these older German cars held together with this old school seam sealer, so what we're going to do is we're going to clean it out and we're going to add additional spot welds to the areas, pinch it and spot weld it so it's just as strong, if not stronger, as it was before. So we're staying privy to the chassis rigidity in this project. Very important. God forbid something happens or is racing the vehicle and he gets hurt, we want to make sure the Mercedes is there to protect him. So we got a little bit of a before right here. And we have after. We also cut the center of this transmission support at this Y, because there'll be additional cross bracing in this vehicle. It has a cage in it now, but this will just make things a lot easier to access on the fly. So we're just pulling through a lot of this door harness, and it's like a lot of this stuff probably was cut years past, but Anderson, if you're watching, we're gonna have fun throwing this thing back together, because I'm not quite sure the orientation of these. And this harness for this door is like an anaconda. That's Mercedes life for you right here. So we're gonna get her to release the rest of this. Come on. Wow, that's a whole lot of snake, and that's a small hole. I don't have too much faith in these. And I don't want to take the pins out of these clips and connectors. Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah. I think I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to release the pins out of these. Got these guys right here. Out. Bang, I took pictures of it. And this guy right here, you're gonna have to do the same thing. So these older Mercedes clips open up. Whoop, sorry for the camera readjustment. I'm just doing it by myself right now. My camera team here. Oh no. So so they just gave birth to the clips, and this would have been the orientation before we lose it entirely. Would have gone like this. Pow. Right like that. So I'm going to take a photo of this. Whoop. There we go. That's out, that's out. Try this again. Mercedes gets their wiring harness inside their chassis. So these doors, this is the first time these doors have been off. You can see the original paint, and this is primer. This is actually the shading around. These doors have been on this car probably even before it was painted at the factory, as crazy as that sounds. So we're the first ones to remove the doors on this car. We have to for alignment purposes and also painting this project. We can't paint the doors on this car, it would look crazy. So here we are removing the doors for the first time, so it's making things a little extra difficult. Neither here nor there, let's get started. And now we're over to the back door, and I noticed a lot of these wiring harnesses were already cut. Whoever worked on the car before just chopped them out. So these things are just gonna break free as soon as I pull this coupler loose. And unfortunately, somebody's gonna have to remake the wiring harness to get these rear windows to work, or they're just gonna be fixed rear windows, meaning that they don't go up or down. There's maybe a Lexan or a race glass in the rear doors, and just set it and forget it. So guys, we're gonna do a quick recap on the damage we've done. It looks in worse shape than what it did when it arrived. I apologize. It will get better. So what we started to do is strip the insides of the floors. This is all the old dead mat that we have to get rid of. We removed the rear seats. All 4 doors have been removed on this car. We've cut the inner wheel wells, so the tires, those 18-inch rotiform wheels will clear on a full lock either way. Both sides have been cut. The center brace, almost like this inner webbing of this transmission tunnel, has been removed. All of the heat shielding and webbing on either side around the towers have also been removed. Here's the access material. One of them has the VIN number on it, so we're going to keep it. This vehicle has multiple locations of the VIN number, but we're going to save the piece that was removed. This is all of those spare clips and small ties that we have, the hood struts, and also the heater core. I've got to clean up this mess. It's not supposed to look like this for the guys tomorrow, so till next time. That's not coming out. So this roll cage here has been welded in. It's completely through the fender liners, but it's the improper size. It's in the way of the removal of the tank. Anderson's gonna run a fuel cell in here and a real roll cage at some point. So I need to get this thing out. It's not coming out. Roll cage has to, yeah, it's got to completely get cut out. So looks like I'm changing gears again. So I went from removing this wiring harness here to removing the gas tank, being stuck on that, now removing the roll cage. It's just it's starting to evolve into something a little more invasive. It's not the end of the world. Let's just start surgery now. Looks like we're getting on to the heavy stuff. Come on, you're almost there. Whew. right on the inside here. Oh boy. It's the first time I've been underneath this thing. I can assume that these fuel pumps will no longer be in use after this. The original fuel lines. The original fuel line right here and the return. Chances are when I break this line, it's gonna go everywhere. Actually, no, we've actually got a break up there. Come on. Never leave home without the multi-tool. Come on. Give it up. Yeah, we're not gonna bolt, we're just gonna cut this thing free. Okay, so that should be it. I hope the underside of this car is nasty. I thought I got most of it, but okay. Finally giving birth to the gas tank. Ooh, bee's nest. Look at that. They're all dead. They're long gone. It's a, it looks like a mud hornet's nest. Crazy. Beep. Imagine getting in your car and not knowing that was there. All right, so I burnt the hell out of my arm. This Sawzall blade. I gotta replace this blade soon. Come on, girl. One more. Ah, this blade is done. Look at this. It's even polished. It's nice. Woo. So we've got to remove these small sections. Lastly, they're just tacked on by this sheet metal. There's nothing under here that's holding on to them. And this is my pile of pipe. Absolutely no disrespect to the last guy who installed this cage, because, you know, I mean, we're all in it to prove someone else either wrong or misinstalled, but we're not quite sure of the last situation or the intentions of this vehicle. So to whomever installed any of the parts before this or the work that was done before myself, absolutely no fault. I respect everyone in their craft. This vehicle might have just had different path of direction. So much props regardless. We're all in it to win it, and much respect. A lot of old parts that just don't want to move in here. They haven't been touched in a while, so they will play trickier than what we expect. Come on. Wow. So plastic. It's nothing to mess with. Okay, I give up on you. Pretty bad. All of this harness. It's gotta come out. What's done over here. Most of this is ready to come through now. So all of this, again, this was all chopped and cut. I don't know if I should just continue to cut things out and remove them the way they were. Some of it was burnt along the way. Maybe when they were putting the cage in, it looks like that was cooked. All right, so we'll just clip it, separate it, remove the rest. No. All right. Back on the car, we've got a nice radius at the top of the wheel. We're clear in the front of that lower headlight pocket, and stick this fender in place. From the outside looking in, just about where we want it to be. We can go up a little more in the center here, and everything is clearing. This actually comes down a little tighter. That's one of these. So we're going to apply some pressure underneath the front of this wheel, bring it up as far as we can for now, maybe get a little adjustability out of that for more of a full drop. See how far we can actually go before we start to touch again. Okay, so that's about as far as we could or should go. A little pressure on the front. Got less wheel gap. I still want to go up higher. So, a few things I'm not happy about right here. One, first and foremost, I have an epic amount of wheel gap in here. I could stick a baby through that thing. Furthermore, the suspension is pretty much tapped out of adjustment. I could go slightly further in the casting, the actual casing itself, but it's not going to do us any good because the spring is too tall. So even if we go with a shorter spring on this, there isn't going to be much rebound. And our control arm is already starting to pitch upwards. It's not the end of the world. It looks like someone may have already modified or moved these the steering ends. However, I'm running out of space with the inside of this strut tower. So if I'm going to go any further than what you guys see here, especially if he's going to try to get some camber out of this thing, it's going to be absolutely impossible. This is an extremely large wheel for this car. It looks great. However, it's probably not a wheel and tire setup that is attempted often. There's a lot of modification that's required here. I'm not even quite sure how much further I can go with the stock configuration on this car. As far as the strut tower is concerned, I would need to eliminate everything around it. Yeah, there's a small spot on this camera right there, and it's from the plasma cutter, so I'm gonna have to get a new camera. But this is absolutely no good. This tower isn't going to do us any justice unless I completely remove everything around it and bring it up, cut around the back side of it, and suspend it by everything else around the vehicle. It's not something that we have time for at this moment. However, it is essential, especially if they're going to be utilizing the body, the flares, the wheel, the tire. you know, these cars typically have a lot of wheel gap, but from what I understand, this car is something very special and can't be just like every other Mercedes 190 Cosworth on the road. This has to be something different. So I think I'm gonna make the command decision here, and I'm not sure if Anderson's gonna like it, but I'm going to completely chop the inside of these strut towers and suspend them, then basically re-brace them to the rest of the chassis. We've already gained a ton of room on either side. I kept it as symmetrical as possible on each wheel well. This was, I believe, a pre-existing air intake or air duct. So I just cleaned up the edges the best I could. And again, keeping it completely symmetrical with either side. You've got holes over here. The holes are almost the same location on the other side. The amount of steel to that hole. Cleaning it up the best I can. Just an inner view of this wheel well. We would have to dice all of this and around the way, separating it from the rest. I would probably just cut this out because now this is no longer in use. This was for that secondary, the separate spring, the original Mercedes stuff. But yeah, I would have to cut all of this, and this inner structure support is very close to the backside of our tire. So, with that said, and with instructions with this fender off, now she doesn't want to let go, to give you an idea, all of this has to be removed. So we would continue slicing and dicing, clearing this up, and even when we go full steer, and I've got a lot of load on this tire, so hopefully the jack doesn't kick out on us. Keep going, and we are just about to touch on the inside of that tire. And it's not okay. So we can go down with the tire a little bit, leave some of that stress as we cut further in on the inside of that tire. We're still touching right on the back side of this lowest part of the rear side of this engine bay. So right here, this corner. So this would have to come out and around in this section and break it free. Again, not something that I was hoping to see. This is probably the worst case scenario. Damn, that dot is all up in my face everywhere. It's like a ghost, it's like an orb. It's the only plan of attack I have. My only thoughts. As far as the wheel spacing, the offset, Rotiform has this wheel very, very close to where it needs to be. As far as placement from the outside, the outermost part of the wheel and the actual flare itself, it's very close. I mean, it's all coherent with the kit. But this is a 19-inch wheel on a 35 series tire. This is a lot of wheel and tire. It looks fantastic with the car, and it has to be. I mean, no one's running this setup on another 190, so this is going to be the how-to, saving the overall your turn-to-turn. We don't want to touch on the inside of this car, these wheel wells. Again, we're going a little further than the average 190. So we're up here with the ex-Gumout Diego Higa Formula Drift 2023 attempt vehicle, and as you can see on the insides of these strut towers on either side, for the most part it's open. Again, very similar to the Mazda RX-7, the FDs. These plastic liners covered up a majority of the space in between the headlight and the top of the strut tower. In this vehicle's particular case, it has reinforced top hat covers, or top hat bases if you will, and it's got not so much as far as reinforcements concerned on the inside of this car. Again, this is to the tune of probably 30 years newer than the Mercedes, But the concept and the idea is there, and with supports to the front of that strut tower and also to the rear of, we'll be able to replicate a very similar wheel trajectory. Outside of, obviously, this car has extended control arms. We'll be able to replicate that to some extent on the Mercedes without having the control arms, although it would be nice. Little modification is required, but it is possible. That's all I'm trying to prove. That it is very possible that we can pull something like this off on the Mercedes. Later on, if Anderson ever wants to change the suspension and extend the control arms, or change things up from that Evolution 2 body style to something more along the lines of like an IMSA super wide body track style, then he can, through just extended control arms and obviously widening the wheelbase and also the aesthetics in the front of the vehicle. Let's get to work. So, to give you guys an idea, this is gonna lay right about there, and this guy will go somewhere right in here. So we've got to lightly angle the end so it meets this plate a little closer. Lightly apply a gap on either end for either a 3/8 or quarter plate steel to the tower itself. So we have to leave a little wiggle room, but for now it's going to be tacked in place, and it'll be just as a support bar for either side. So if this thing would just stay in place, it's not. So give you an idea, these guys are going to go somewhere right there. It'll support the tower. We'll be able to alleviate the rest of what's around either tower, and it's got a bend in it far enough it'll clear the tire. And we're using the old stock of the roll cage, so we're not wasting on this car. I'm a person that doesn't like to waste, so we're going to reutilize a lot of this stuff. It's good material, it's good stuff. So this is just a few tacks in place. Please don't mind them welds. The surface area is not as clean as it should be. Obviously, when you're running at a nice speed, you want everything to be picture perfect clean. This is only to hold it in place long enough that the bar doesn't break or snap off when we go to oscillate the wheel. So this will be finalized. It's gonna get a steel plate that goes thereafter. Same with the front. It's got a lot of paint and material on the inside. I did my best to manually sand it down. I had an issue with the compressor just now. So again, I would like to apply more weld to that, and I will, but right now it's just in place. Hold it. We're gonna cut and break free the rest of this tower and move on to the passenger side. Now, with most of the wheel well missing, and don't hate for me for some of the cuts that I had just performed, as I explained, I don't have a compressor right now, so I'm just using the Sawzall, which is on a very coarse blade, and also my dually purposed cutoff wheel. So I've got this thin external disc for making the cuts, and then I apply a little pressure on the center just to clean up the welds, or the cuts rather. So on the inside of here, yeah, I made a little boo-boo when I was cutting into the hood bracket, but I'll clean that up and put a small gusset there. But this is around about the idea of what is in place. If the tire starts to hit this inner support on the backside of the footwell box, this is going to be a serious issue. I'll have to relocate this or change it to a piece of bar stock slightly further behind the pre-existing location. And on the backside here, this is also going to need an additional support. So again, don't mind my nasty looking welds right now. The back side of this is also going to need additional support. So I'm just playing with a few of the recycled pieces that we cut off the original cage. And from what I'm seeing here is that this bar will get tucked into this corner as a brace. The old, I want to say this is like a fuse box location originally. I didn't remove it, so I'm not quite sure what went there. But this will get covered over. This bar I'm going to slice at a 45-degree angle and just run a light bead on the inside. It will be a plate and weld. So the strut tower will have the support of the rearmost side of the wheel well, and the back side of the strut tower will also have that additional support to this super reinforced, this is where the brake booster goes, a lot of your brake components, and again, your foot pedal box is just on the back side of this. So it'll be something similar to this, beveled edge, welded to the foot pedal box and also stuffed on the inside, and it'll have a support on this end. Now for the opposing side, we haven't got that far because I want to make sure that this concept and design works. So when I go to weld my bars, it'll be a one-shot deal, and we'll put the 1/4-inch steel plate bases onto the pipes before I weld them. So it'll be a one-shot deal. This right here, we're just playing with some of the trajectory of the wheel itself. And I'm gonna put the wheel and tire back on. This is a pre-existing spring keeper location. So this car had a strut and separate springs, sort of like what BMW's done in the past, and they still do up until this day. If Anderson wants to keep this, that's cool. I think we might want to cut that off. It's still to be determined that he might have the possibility of running like an air ride suspension on this, where we would just be able to put a small bag on the inside of this lower control arm, and it's basically locked and loaded, ready to go. It's very ideal for if he wants to ever run that super slam look without a ton of modification involved. So I might get it out of the way, it might stay, it's to be determined. The inside, again, this is very crude. I'm gonna clean it up with air tools after I brace it, get it tacked in a location, a place where I'm happy, making sure that this isn't in my way, the side skirt's in place. I wanna put the front of the car on the ground today. I know I've been talking about it for the last 4 serious surgeries I've done to the front end. To be honest with you, I'm not happy with it. Anderson's like, yo, you're the boss, so I'm just gonna run with it. This is exactly what I would do to my 190E if I still had it or the ability to modify it. So I'm living vicariously through you, Anderson. One glove, half a glove, it's just enough. Got it. Here we go. Let's notch it. Let's notch it first. Happy with it. Here we go. Come on. Today is not my day. Nope. All right. I have to put it on the vise. So maybe you guys are tuning in to watch me get missing a finger or some crazy shit like that, but yeah, that was a close one. So here we go. I've got this cross brace in a cut-it size that super temporary. It kind of goes with the flow. We'll tack it into the side of top of this foot level, actually the booster housing. Tack it into the rear, to the front. There'll be official flanges made on each opposing end, just as this, and they'll be TIG welded in. So everything when it's done, it's gonna look picture perfect. Right now, this is just to get an idea with what's gonna clear, the rigidity, if it'll be enough when compression of the suspension is all the way up or on the ground, the wheel is on. Still wanna make sure that this clears. I'm still very afraid of this main support beam right here. That we gotta clean up. This is the hood support, so that's why I've got this pipe a little further out of this corner instead of tucked way back in, because if that were the case, then we might not ever be able to mount the hood brackets on correctly. So we've got it spaced out a little bit. Right there seems to be the location. We want it slightly even all the way across with this other front pipe, just so the force and the strength is there. Two opposing pipes are on either angles and they're in different sides of things. It's just, it doesn't give you the strength that you want of the setup. So this guy's gonna be right in here. I'm gonna tack this pipe in. We're gonna put the wheel on and see how much more space we actually gained. Fingers crossed on this. Anderson has no idea that we went this far with the car. Hope he doesn't kill me. It's in pieces right now. So it can only get better from here, guaranteed. Some of you are tuning into the car, and also you are probably sticking around to see if at some point in time I'm gonna chopping a finger off, because that was really close. Now we've got the Y pipe in place. Kind of happy with the location. The gap, it's added gap, because we're gonna add multiple plates on either end of this. So we wanna leave a little slack, but where I was able to just tack in on the back side of this to hold it for now will suffice. And then I might actually cut this pipe back slightly further before we weld a new mount plate to the booster base and also this strut tower as well. All of this inner coating though, if you could see, it's extremely thick and it all has to come off. This is that nasty German super schutz that you'll see on a lot of the older cars. This is one of the reasons why they were so quiet. They rode well, sound deadening, and it was also it was a rust preventative until people discovered that water actually would get in through behind it and it would make problems even worse. So it is everywhere. It's extremely thick and it's very hard to weld or tack pieces on because it just burns. So as you can see, this right here, the rust has gotten underneath it and it's just probably completely rotted in there. So, all right. Back to the location. We're happy with the position. It will work. I know it will work. We just need to get the wheel on, make sure this clears. This is all that's going to be left to hold the fender, which is kind of frightening. But we're going to go with plate and bar stock. We're going to run it on the inside of this fender and tie it in to the front of this door post and also to the front of the nose. It'll be thick enough, and we'll also drill and thread the back side of the bar stock so we can mount the fender directly to this piece of sheet metal instead of having these little like wafer clips, because they strip easy. So we're actually going to use a solid rigid plate behind this, and also tie up and add some rigidity to your hood supports. So the front of this pipe, I'm going to bring this up further. I'm not too fond of the position. I want this to be more level. I tacked it on and I was looking from the driver's side in and it's wonky. So I'm gonna get the wheel on and that'll be the first thing I move. I wanna be happy with the position before I lock everything down and also make the base plates for it. But from a bird's eye, it looked like it was gonna work. I've got the fender in place and it is straight carnage on the inside of this car. But now look at the amount of wheel space that we've gained. That is a 19-inch wheel. As you can see, it's almost the size of my dog. Frenchie, 19-inch wheel. With a tire, no tire. So here we go. Before we end up putting this wheel back on because we know the spring was too large and it was too tight. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take this spring out just to see if we had the ideal suspension with the ultimate drop, if it's gonna suffice. So we're gonna remove the spring from this coilover setup and start over. So okay, we got ourselves a moment of truth. Katana, watch out. So here we go, guys. This is the moment of truth on the one modified side suspension without springs, not including the rear, because we already know the rear is going to be a bit of a pain in the butt. Okay. All right. Let's see if we give it a little more of a step. It's got no motor in it right now. It's not what we were expecting. Roll it back. We're gonna do the good old back and forth trick. Running over zip ties. All right, so it's better than what it was, but I need to be certain that this wheel can go up. And unfortunately, right now, there's not enough weight in the car for it to drop. Obviously, we've got no drivetrain in it, and we've shaved a lot of the access metal, so this car is a lot lighter than what it would ever be in its life. So, down we go. We're gonna lift up the front, we're gonna apply pressure underneath this front wheel and see exactly how far that wheel will go. Right now, I am pretty content with how far this wheel will go. It's just touching the inside of this footwell, not by much, and we have a ton of turning. I mean, this wheel is cocked, and it's the only section that it's touching is right there. So we're almost. Now let's see how far it'll go. Sorry, I just had to take a quick pit stop. My brain is like working a million miles an hour, but that's a good look. So we've got two jack stands in place, and here's the final moment of truth. Go up. All right, we're off that jack stand right now. Idea how much further we can go before this jack stand flies out on us. Right there, just before we're touching the top of that strut tower, we have to cut that a little further and clean up these edges, as well as this flange here, so we've got some better turn in. The back still clears, and we have a very, very even wheel gap. I've always been someone that comes to a perfectionist with wheel gaps. It just has to be correct. And also the suspension. I mean, we want this car to sit, look, handle, and also be capable of doing much more in the future, regardless of what setup he wants to put in this car. So I'm happy with the front at least. We've got a lot of work to do on the back to get the back to sit without scraping the inside of the wheel well. But right now, that right there is a good look. And to be honest with you, I don't think there are many 190E Mercedes-Benz that have the ability to go this far with a 19, where is it? 245 35 ZR19. If there's anyone out there running this size wheel with this tire, especially in the front, drop a comment, let me know. I want to check out the setup as soon as possible, because this right here, I don't see it happening any other way. Ready? All right. What's going on, guys? We are back and we've got a whole bunch of parts sanded down. We're doing a whole bunch of body work over again. Some primered panels, some spray paint removal, and a whole bunch of cleanup. The inside of the car has been completely stripped down. So there was a protective sound matting up top here, laid thick on the firewall. It was glued up in many areas of the corners of the vehicle. It came all the way down into the footwells, all the way across the passenger side of the vehicle, even into the areas of the rear seat wells. You could see some of that stuff is actually, well, right there is like the burn from the pre-existing cage. We're gonna cut out of those inner structure supports. So we have to cut level and then throw a new base plate for support. The footwell, we've got a little rust on the driver's side rather, over by the clutch pedal. We're gonna get rid of that, clean that stuff up. These pedals seem to be in good condition. Everything around that footwell box looks great, usable. We still have some of the matting in different areas of the interior, but this was all glued down. Like, you see people that use like dry ice and they put large amounts of dry ice down. They let it sit and then they hit it and crack it with a hammer, but you're damaging and fracturing the floor. So what we did was we used almost like a paint solvent reducer, let it sit on underneath these mats for an extended period of time, just went in there with scrapers. So you'll see some scratches, but nothing crazy, because we already have this to clean up. We don't want to make ourselves more work than what we already have to do. So we took care of as much as possible, leaving it dent free so it doesn't look all bashed up. And the sunroof is still in place. That has to come down. The inner mechanisms have to be removed so we can get a nice, even, clean coat of black in here ASAP. So my idea and what I'm thinking now is that the cage gets painted separately. I think the cage should almost be painted in this frosted gold color. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna paint the floors and the interior black, get it looking as nice as we can. Whatever interior is going to be laid on top of it thereafter, so be it. But all of this, when the dashboard goes on or over, it'll all be easily accessible, and it'll be a clean surface to work with moving forward. All of these floors are going to be clean and painted throughout both sides, the roof, the top, the rear. They're going to remove this windshield. I would like to try to get at least the interior painted before they remove that glass, because the amount of overspray that's going to be here is ridiculous. And this glass is got its fair share of scratches. So we're just going to use it. It's going to be like masking paper for us. The rest of the material, again, just comes off. We're going to remove that. There was a lot of glue underneath this surface, so we prepped and cleaned the glue. There'll be a little more scuff padding to do, and then the interior is done. So coming to the outside of the door jambs, we still have to remove our rocker panels here. We left them in place just so we could finalize any of the door lines and gaps, any concerns we would have with the bottom, the lowermost surface of the door and the topmost surface of the rocker panel. I want to make sure that those lines are correct. So we left those in place. And also, this is another concern, where the rear quarter panel over fender, which it's got fairly decent gaps at the top. I checked it. The guy that put it on before fitted all right. We can use almost like a body or a tape gap, like a sealer, for some of those to tighten them up even more. You wouldn't even notice it. and the panels will stop. There will be no vibration and rattling. Around these inner corners, there's definitely going to need some body work and some fiberglass work to be done. These caps, I've yet to find these caps. There are 4 of them. We might have to make something for them. Originally, it would have been a jack point or a bolt. Actually, if you look closely, it's hard to see in here. I don't know if I can get it hard enough, but there's actually here. I'm gonna get my phone because it's actually a... So on the inside, you actually have a bar tube. Back in the day, there would be a stick or a bar stuck in place, and it would act as a quick jack or a mounting, a lift point for the vehicle. I'm not quite sure what Anderson's planning on doing with this car, but I know for a fact that those panels should be accessible. These bars should be in place in the event that he is at the track. He kind of want to make an OG jack stand or lift support without actually going up on the rocker panels or anywhere else on the car. You have those lift points so it can be suspended without touching anywhere else on the vehicle, without damaging your body seams or freshly painted panels underneath the car. It's just a cooler look, it's a better vibe, and it's less liability. Scrap metal bars going back in the engine bay, modifying the inside. This is just tacked into place. We're gonna start welding up the rest of the holes, stripping down the rest of the engine bay, giving Anderson exactly what he wants, but I know in the event that he wants to get at something behind the dashboard, but doesn't want to access it, pull the dash out and go through all that crazy stuff, and Anderson's gonna love this one. I'm gonna leave this firewall plate and this one as well, and it'll be bolted or quick release on the firewall. So if they have to, they can get in, reach over the side of the engine bay here, quick release, and pull out the sections, the plates, and access all the wiring, the majority of the wiring. I don't want to say all of them because some of them might be blocked over by the driver's side of your dashboard, but you'll be able to access everything through here. And again, this used to be your heater core box, which he's not going to use. This used to be a tranny brace over here. There was heat flanges and body supports. It is going to be so user-friendly. I wouldn't be surprised if Anderson built another one after this. This build is going to make the do-it-yourselfer 190E Mercedes Club Racers great again. They're going to love this. We have some blow-through marks from the plasma cutter. Again, areas that we're going to fill up. We're not concerned. I've got to get back to work, and let's go. Let's go. We got no time. What am I doing? What's going on, guys? So here we are back again. This flange is not symmetrical with this flange right here. And what we've started to do is actually weld on these nice support plates. We've got our bar and support in the right area. Here is the trajectory of said bar. That one still has to get replaced. Now we have to remove this flange on the inside because I want this shock tower to look a lot like this one. And although both shock towers are somewhat not so symmetrical with these additional flanges, base plates, all the other wild stuff that is factory Mercedes on this side, that is not factory Mercedes on the driver's side, I want to go in and drill out these spot welds, remove this flange, clean it up so we have a nice, painted, beautiful surface on either side, and not any of this old debris of what used to be that side heat support slash heat, I mean, inner support slash heat shield. fucking his weld up, so I've got to stand in front of that fan so it doesn't push the gas past the ignition of said spark. Here we are with more panel prep. This is pre-primer prep on these fenders. There are a lot of areas that had some cracks. I'm not too happy with a couple of the areas, the corners. I want to get them in at least a first coat of sealer, which is basically locking everything down underneath the first surfaces. Before we build up on that, before we start cutting down and really grinding into the cracks, I want to put one unified coat across everything because I'm really not quite sure what's going on with these fenders. I cut them down the best I could, leveled in areas that probably won't even be seen. And now I'm here touching up spots with this putty in areas of the inner fender line. I've got these, the doors are actually in the spray booth right now. About to get shot with a couple coats of sealer as well. I blocked out a lot of the light waves, nothing too crazy. Doors are, glasses out, doors are apart. We're making progress on that front, and Buddy Ricky's here, hammering out, at least tacking into place. Now he's got the finalization of the supports on this strut tower. The bases of both front, actually still got to finish up a little bit in there, Ricky, I don't know where you're at. And then we do the final weld, which will be done in a TIG around the pipes. So the base plates are done with MIG, and around the pipe itself will be done in a TIG weld because we want that to be much cleaner than the rest of what's going on. So here we are with the engine bay. The inside of this wheel well is completely chopped out. It's looking crazy on either side of this car. Now we have to regain some stability in the front end. I'm over here doing some body work. Now I'm jumping in the booth to actually throw some sealer on a lot of these parts to make sure the good work I've done so far is locked in, and then I'll chase a lot of the old, real damaging aspects, maybe a couple of the cracks on the other side of the panel. But here we are, back at the car. This is just dust. I've got to get those wheels off. They've been on for a couple days too long. These wheels are going to be the final show wheels, so we're going to get those things cleaned up, lightly dry ass blasted, so it looks good. The inside of the trunk is yet to be cut out. We're going to clean up the rest of the bars. Finishing up with the engine bay. Hopefully we'll be in paint with the engine bay this weekend. Just 2 days of the rest of the parts in sealer, everything in sealer, and the inside of the body will be shortly painted thereafter. And what we'll do is we'll weld the cage in and leave it raw up until the point of possibly Andrus's decision if we're gonna paint that cage black or if we're gonna go gold. He says leave it to me. I'm saying go gold with it. It's gonna look better. A little added contrast to the inside of the vehicle, give it some depth. It's still to be determined. Maybe we paint it black with some gold accents or a pinstriping along the cage would actually be even cooler. So with that said, I gotta get back to work. So all the rest of this sheen that you'll see, like these shiny little dimples, all of that has to be removed. I want to make sure the surface is completely smooth, but as you can move up and down on this, what you'll do is you'll see two areas that are actually slightly lower than the rest, and what they'll do is actually look like two little sinkholes when it's painted. So I'm going to go in and clean the rest of this up. I still don't know what this is. It's still soft to sand. It leaves like balled up little pieces everywhere, so it's a very soft primer. It's making things very difficult to sand. Trying to see if I can find areas like if sanded for too long, it'll actually stick to the fender. You see it here, and there, and there, and there. So I wipe off the panel, and this stuff stays with it. So it's a little tacky. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is, but I'm going to buzz the rest of it down thin enough that the new sealer that's going to go over, it's going to lock everything below that surface. My hands. This just give you a better understanding of what this is supposed to look like, or at least close to it, it's, for the most part, it's all cut down. You've got a little more dimpling over here, and there's some small shiny speckles in this area, but for the most part, you want something completely smooth. And what you'll see is the areas that I've sanded, these are the high spots, and then if you look over here, you've got our dimple, it's back again, and this is the low. So I've got to smooth this all out, so it's all one uniform, at least looking like the rest of the front of this fender. As far as the back, I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but we'll figure it out. So I want you guys to pay attention to right here. So the reflection passed, and with a pre-cleaner on it, you can notice a dent right here, and also there's a larger one on the side of this door right up by the seam, right around here. If you look closely, it's right there. So what we're doing is we're just wiping these doors down, cleaning them up, square away the dents to the best of our ability for now, and just let the primer do its thing, because again, we just need to get all of this panel locked and sealed. So next on the agenda, now the doors are almost ready for a sealer primer. I've got a couple dents that are still on these doors, and I want to make sure that we attack those areas before we put another coat of material over material that is already questionable. So we've got one door to my left and another one to my right. I've got an additional door hanging up, and I have another door on the other side of this bay. Without further delay, we're going to spray pre-cleaner on all three doors. The fourth one I already checked is actually pretty straight, like so. And what this will do is that we'll be able to see some of the variations or dents with the viewers here, because obviously you guys don't know what I'm feeling, and the hand is always the best way to search out the dents. This pre-cleaner is alcohol based, so it doesn't matter very much against this bare metal. But as you get down and up towards this area right here, you'll see a wave, and I'll play the camera back a few times so you guys see exactly what I'm seeing. I know some of you might be saying it's a little meticulous, it's a little finicky of you. I just want to make sure this is good. One, it's good enough for me, and two, it's not a waste of any of the materials that we put on over our base coat and up and leading to the paint and clear. So I want the panel to be as straight as possible. The car is going to be black, so everything is going to be seen. They say lighter the cars, the more you can get away with. The darker the vehicle, it is the least amount you'll get away with, the more that you'll see, especially from a distance, from surface scratches to dents and waves. So I need to make sure that all of this stuff is straight, and it's pretty late here tonight, but I need to get this thing done. You see this sharp one right on the end here. It's a big one right there. So these are, they're easy, very easy to be, I'm gonna say missed, but it's a sharp dent. So we got one there. I'm not gonna waste too much time on any singular dent or aspect. I just wanna make sure that you guys see what I'm seeing. So what we've got here is just a standard light metal glazing or body filler or putty. Some people call it Bondo. So here we are, mixing it up, and I'm going to use it sparingly. It's got a little bit too much hardener in it. It's a little bluer than what I would like it to be. Therefore, it's going to dry faster. I just want to get this stuff laid on and sanded so I can shoot primer on these doors. Okay, so it's all mixed up. For now, we got a spreader right here. So what I'll do is that. Got this dent right here. Lightly coat the corner of this door. like so. Makes it a little better. I don't know, I've got some, I let this sit for a little too long with the hardener sitting on top of the pile, so I've got a few thicker pieces in this that I'd like to see. And there was, let me just check, there was a large one here. I think it was on this door. Yes, it is right here. So, with that said, we're gonna do one of these. A little more on this guy. A little strip of blue right there. Mix this up. Again, I put way too much in this, but I got just enough time to see it through. Should be enough to handle this. If there's any more around on this door. There's a big one right here, but this whole area is going to be covered with the plastic cladding. So we're not going to see this one so much, so I'm going to lightly pop it back. Doesn't need to be flawless. I believe this door had one more right here. All right, so I'm going to get this cut, clean up those two doors, clean up this, and shoot some primer on these things. Up next for the Mercedes 190E, we've had the car jacked up for quite some time, and it's about that moment where we're going to drop all the suspension, the steering in the front of this, so I can access the rest of the engine bay, finish off the fabrication work, as well as get it painted. So all of this is going to come off, but before then, we're going to put this vehicle on a chassis gig. So it's more or less something that I fabricated years ago. We've got a couple of them outside. It's just a general square frame with a set of hardened high capacity load wheels on the base. So we can actually remove the rest of the components on the car, including the rear suspension and the front. The rest of the drivetrain's already been removed, so we're gonna sit the body on top of this chassis gig, this square base. It will allow us to access all four corners with the suspension completely off, and most importantly, it's going to be mobile. So this entire car will be able to go from fabrication room back to the body shop and also into the spray booth. So it's going to make my job easier and Anderson's car a much cleaner final product. There we have it. Final stage of disassembly has begun. This little rack joint right here. Finally, we had to beat up on this thing a little bit. I mean, this joint is completely played out, and we're going to replace all these tie rod ends anyway, so it doesn't matter how much abuse that they take, they're all getting swapped out. I got to pick up all this hardware and label it. We've got front, rear, and the cam washers. Can't lose these guys, very important, very important. Some of our hardware for the front end. Got the motor mount number 1, motor mount number 2. So now we're almost done with the rear end. I'm about to drop it down. I've got the rear struts disconnected. Obviously drive shaft was already removed before my commencement with this vehicle, and it is completely removed. So we just had a couple mounts in the rear. We've got the 2 upper strut bolts. And for the most part, these things drop down fairly easily. So I've got the jack, my supports, my brace underneath. And we're about to put her on the ground. So here we go. Lastly, I know what you guys are thinking. I'm just going to remove this thing to get out of the way because it's annoying me as much as it's annoying you. So look at that. This looks great. This is beautiful. This was actually a really good idea. So I had to bust out the flamethrower so I get out a lot of that thicker undercoating on the inside of the car. It's worked extremely well. So I'm burning it off with a Boring Company flamethrower. I've had it stashed away just as like a novelty item. And in the process, all of this stuff is just cooking. It's gonna peel right off. And you've got this really, really, really beautiful torch look. So my plans on this will be to brighten up the engine bay after we end up hitting it with just abrasive sandpapers, knocking it down so it's the raw exposed metal. And then what we'll do is we'll hit it with the flame on the strut towers and everywhere else on the engine bay, so it's going to have that burnt look, like that burnt titanium, and then we'll clear over it and put a almost like a sealer protectant, transparent protectant, so it'll have areas that look like burnt titanium. Let it cool down for too long, it's going to give me a problem, but you get the gist of it. All of this stuff is going to come up much easier. I was too busy making you guys the video, and now there we go. All of this stuff is going to come off much easier. I promise. So I've got this idea that I'm going to burn the inside of these firewell, these fender liners with a torch that I've had for a while. It's like a flamethrower. Well, it's not called a flamethrower. It's one of those Elon Musk, kind of like a trophy piece on your shelf kind of thing. So the insides of these engine bays are, as I've complained many times in the video, with like that super thick gummy fender liner, or that coating rather. So what I'm gonna end up doing is taking that wild, not a flamethrower, to the insides of these fenders. And if it goes as well as I plan it to go, or expect, it's gonna scrape off with either a paint or like a putty knife. We'll just get it hot, we'll burn it off. I was gonna use torches and more industrial stuff, but I think it would be a little cooler and more fun to use the flamethrower. So this is the end of maybe one of Anderson's chapters he's editing. I think he's gonna love this part the most. It's also one of the most, I want to say it's one of the only pieces, either like toy or adult, whatever you call it, like hobby enthusiast collectible, that I'm slightly afraid of. So yeah, last time I pulled it out, it was it just feels reckless. Like they say, it's not a flamethrower, but it's very capable of doing some serious damage. And the amount of gas that comes through it it's just reckless. So I'm excited. However, I'm also a little intimidated. But it's a tool, so we're gonna give it a shot.
Se vocês assistiram até agora aqui para ver tudo que o Colton fez nesse carro aí nessas últimas semanas, acho que vocês estão impressionados assim como eu tô. Cara, o cara é um artista e olha a dedicação que ele está fazendo, sabe? Eu realmente quero deixar um agradecimento incrível pro Colton por toda essa paixão, essa missão que ele está botando no carro. É exatamente isso que eu gosto, é isso que eu procuro. Todas as pessoas que me ajudam nos projetos são apaixonadas pelo que fazem. E eu acho que isso é a junção perfeita entre fazer um projeto que é uma pessoa que curte, que gosta de fazer aquilo, não é pelo dinheiro, é pelo amor. Inclusive, achar um americano que tem esse jeito que a gente às vezes considera mais brasileiro foi fantástico, assim. Então, Colton com certeza se junta a nós aí, ao time de gearheads aí, fanáticos aí que estão fazendo bonito. Vamos na correria e ver se a gente consegue fazer a Mercedes pronta pro SEMA. É uma correria danada. Quem tiver aí, quiser dar uma mão aí de alguma maneira, seja no transporte, seja como levar os carros para lá. Inclusive a gente vai estar no SEMA, independente da Mercedes ir, a gente vai estar no SEMA com o stand lá. Venham nos visitar, vai estar muito legal. Primeira vez que a gente faz SEMA para a Fueltech, então estamos muito empolgados aí. Daqui uns dias a gente vai divulgar melhor aí sobre o nosso stand no SEMA, mas 1º de novembro a 4 de novembro em Las Vegas, é a maior feira de carros de performance do mundo. Pela primeira vez a Fueltech vai estar com o stand lá. Então, esse é só um spoilerzinho do que está para vir aí. Muito obrigado, espero que tenham curtido. Não se esqueçam de se inscrever no canal, a gente está quase chegando nos 200 mil inscritos. E vamos para as próximas missões aí, ó.